Hello, my name is Jordan, and I am from Soups and Sabers.
And I'm Logan from the Screen Society podcast.
We're here talking A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 3, The Squire, which was written by Hiram Martinez, Annie Julia Wyman, and Ira Parker, directed by Sarah Adina Smith, and it premiered February 1st, 2026 on HBO Max and HBO. So, how are you today, Logan, as we get into the halfway point of the show?
I am very tired. I don't usually do like 2 cups of coffee a day, but I had to do it today. Got home at like midnight last night for the Lightning game in Tampa, and they won in overtime. But I am dead right now. So luckily, this kind of stuff like perks me up, and then I'll crash after this. So
Yeah, after
yeah, how you doing?
good. I feel very accomplished today, so I got a lot of stuff done. So it feels like a good day. And one of those things I got done was these notes for the podcast. So I think I
Nice.
am ready to dive in to what many people are calling the best episode of the show.
Jordan, I've even heard the best episode in the history of television. No, I'm kidding. But it
Because
definitely
that'd
had
be a
that.
little bit of hyperbole.
It definitely had that feel on X after that, Jordan.
I've
It
seen
was
some people say that for like the Westeros as a whole, but I still can't agree to that because there's so
yeah.
many
I
there's
was
so many really great
Yeah, I was
episodes.
gonna say you're gonna put that up against like Battle
Like
of the Bastards and
or like the finale. Like, come
yeah.
on.
Sure, they all just turned off the podcast. You better course correct on that one.
No, but I've like I said before, I'm actually watching a series of people, these British folk that I like watching on YouTube, DN TV. They are reacting to Game of Thrones right now, and today Wednesday and Sundays are when they drop their Game of Thrones episodes. So I've been looking forward to those, and they're in season 4 right now, and they just watched the Tyrion speech at his trial, and I'm like, oh my god, these episodes were so good.
Yeah, I gotta revisit Game of Thrones because it's been
Yeah.
long enough where I've not forgotten, but like
But no, there's stuff I've totally forgotten the
yeah,
order of. I'm like, okay, when is
yes,
like
yeah,
this fight coming up, or when is this scene? And I'm, forgetting the order of things. So it's been nice to revisit it through like somebody else experiencing it for the first time and all that. Especially when they get to episodes like the Red Wedding and Purple Wedding and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. So those are very, very good. Okay, so I guess we can dive in to the episode here. It starts off with Dunk being asleep as Egg is lying awake in the morning. And he's kind of thinking back to like last episode. He kind of had some concerns about, being a squire. You can kind of see it in his eyes when he's seeing what a squire does. Squires bring them their weapons during the thing, right? And
Mhm.
Egg is very small compared to Dunk, who is very tall. And I think he's a little worried about, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? So he takes one of the horses off and starts training. And we get like a nice montage of the training. We also get our obligatory crass joke of the episode with the horse shit.
I was listening to a podcast that was like, we've now alternated between shit, piss, and shit. Are we gonna get somebody pissing in the next episode?
Or somebody said, I saw somebody else say, like, we've seen poop and then like dick. Are we going to see horse dick next?
We might.
But but I really love the way that the horse is like nodding along when Egg is asking him questions and stuff, like he understands. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, this scene is, I guess you would say, like a new scene of
Mhm.
Egg training. And he's training on giving him the lance or the sword. He's trying to get the horse going and saying, hey, like all he has is us. And if he loses this, he will not even have that, right? So Egg is feeling the pressure here of being a squire for a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, the scene also.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
That's a really good. That's great, Jordan. Nice job. Was still waiting for that to be said at some point in the podcast. We've made it to what episode? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I love the part where he's just like, I think it shows a very, what would you say? It shows a very nice side of Egg of like he's not like the others in Westeros who, as much as we've known the Game of Thrones world, everybody's just kind of got like a dark side to them. And Egg seems to be far removed from having any kind of feelings like that, where he talks to this horse like he's going to respect it, where these knights are quick to seem to want to just get rid of their horses or if
Yeah,
horses
he
die.
says his dad thinks horses are as dumb as dogs or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that they only know like the field or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not like smart. And
Yeah.
Egg is saying that he does not agree with that, and we're seeing a horse acknowledge this. So I
Yeah,
mean,
so the horse is clearly,
smart.
feeling this, yeah,
Yeah.
and, I think the line was like, "You don't like being ordered around just like the men don't like being ordered around in
Mhm.
this world," and I think that's such a cool moment for, a reveal that we end up getting in this episode.
Yeah, we have a man approach Egg afterwards, asking if he stole the horse. And it's one-eyed Sir Robin Riesling, the maddest knight in the Seven Kingdoms, is what Egg calls him. But I love this exchange where it's, "What is wrong with your hair?" And he says, "What is wrong with your eye?" And we see the flashback of him losing his eye, and it is grossly dangling from his socket.
You wanna
It's
know a
so
fun
gross.
story about this? So my dad played basketball, men's pickup after
He took
college.
Robin's eye?
He did. So,
Oh,
like,
wow.
he was the no, I'm kidding. But my dad said, because this was a question going around the internet, could he still see? So my dad played with a guy on his team that, went up for a rebound, and then the guy on the other team got his hand caught in the eye socket and pulled it at the eyeball, like, to where it was dangling just like that, and you can see everything. He said he just
Well,
saw
yeah,
the
I
floor,
would assume it's like
and
a
it just
lazy
is it
eye,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like
just
where
connected.
you're
Yeah.
seeing different.
He said it was, like, all the way out to where you could see pretty far in behind it. I was like,
Now I
"That's
do wonder if
disgusting."
he could still see because this was like a freaking lance to the eye.
That's also a good
But
point. Yeah.
it was grossly hanging there that if he was, I mean, he would start steering into oncoming traffic with his horse. He wouldn't know where he's going. That's gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they get back and Dunk is, sewing and patching up his clothes. And he kind of like chews Eggs out for, leaving and saying like, "Don't ever, kind of leave without telling me." And he's kind of pulling what we feel is, I would say, what I feel is the like Sir Arlen. I'm sure Sir Arlen said this type of stuff to Dunk,
Oh, yeah,
like
100%.
or I'm gonna, clout you in the ear like we've heard, but also
Yeah.
like I forget exactly what he says this when he says when he tells them to come back when they meet back up, but he
You
then
need to
kind of
tell
I
me where
think
you're going from now on
yeah,
when you leave. Yeah.
but then he like does something where like Egg says something and then
Because
he
he
kind
thought
of
he was
gives
getting robbed or something.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he kind of then just like gives him another like, "Hey, don't do that or else I'm gonna do this thing to
Yeah.
you." I think it was when they were talking about the breakfast and the hard salt beef, and he was like, "I'm gonna, you know, pretty much beat you." And
Yeah.
then he kind of walks it back a bit and starts showing Egg how to sew and patch stuff. So he's kind of learning, I think, how to be I wouldn't say like a big brother or a knight to his squire type of relationship. It doesn't have to always. He doesn't have to base everything off of how Sir Arlen had treated him. And we get Egg singing in the tree. This is like another song about I think the Blackfire rebellions.
Mhm.
And then Dunk is like, "All right, go get me your armor. Go get me my armor." And Egg is just kind of like, "No." And then he says, originally, and then he'll originally get around to it of, only high birth and renown can challenge the first day. And then Dunk just so amazingly with the "Why have I been vomiting all morning?"
I love Egg's comeback from that. He's like, "Well, I don't know why you've been doing that."
Yeah,
It's like,
I don't
you've
know.
been worrying yourself for no reason, dude. I don't know. Oh, man. You notice
But it
in this
just
episode too, like and they asked, uh, is it Dexter? They asked him like,
Mhm.
how, why Egg doesn't curse, but like I guess Dexter is really adverse to it too. He says he like cringes every time he has to do it in the show. but when he's singing that song, he's making up all of the stuff like "kiss your grass" and stuff like that that we used to say, and he would get to like a curse word in the song, and then he'd kind of just play it off as something else. And I
Well,
was
yeah,
like,
what I was
that's pretty
reading
funny.
too, what I was reading is that that's like a common thing for like somebody said for common things for like British songs like that. Just think of
Hmm.
like, the like a soccer chant type thing where they
Yep.
sometimes will skirt around that, or like people say like the song Miss Mary Mac,
Hmm.
kind of where it's like you think they're going to say one thing and then they cut to the next line of the song, which is like implying the curse, but like it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like, changing your expectations. It's playing with your expectations where you're like, oh, he's gonna say like cock here, and then it like, oh, it goes to the next line,
Yeah.
and I think it works really well in those type of songs. And for for Egg, it's probably this. I feel like as kids, you thought you were getting away with something
Hmm.
when you're doing that. Like, oh, my parents think I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna throw a frick in there instead,
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean, like, I was a good kid though. Like, I didn't curse until like maybe late high school, early college,
Yeah.
and I if a song was on that had cursing, I would also, even when I was by myself, when I was a good kid, I would censor myself of not singing the curse word. Um, but yeah, so that's probably a little bit of what Egg is feeling there. He's a good kid. They go get goose eggs, which look really good, by the way, when they were cracking those things open.
Oh yeah. No, they look like when they poured them out, I was like, man, that's a lot more than like what you get with like chicken's eggs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, oh, oh. Before we go on, one of the best lines in the whole thing was right before they go. When Egg says, "Is it a little odd that I have little black hairs growing out on my
Yeah.
stones?" And he goes, "No, it's," Dunk's like, "No, it's odd that you're telling me."
Right, right.
Which, Jordan, I didn't know this because I guess I'd kind of skipped over this part or just didn't realize it. In the novella, he's 17, so Dunk is
Dunk is, yeah.
17 years old. Yeah, so it makes sense kind of why he's speaking about like
I
he's
think he
doing the
actually
things
doesn't
that
know how old he is. He's
yeah,
between 16 and 17, he thinks, because he thinks, I think it's like they reference like he was around 6 when Sir Arlen took him in, and it's been like
right,
10 years. But like he actually doesn't remember his like pretty much his prior existence before Sir Arlen. But
yeah.
yeah, in this show, I think Peter Claffey is much older than 17, but
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But he plays it well enough to where like
the
he
naivete.
clearly yeah, he's very naive to different things. He doesn't quite have like he doesn't have really the backbone yet to like really stand up like to things that he or say things with conviction because it's always met with like kind of a just kidding because that's like what he says. He goes, I'm not going to feed you. You're going to get that salt beef that
Yeah.
we're eating." And Meg's like, "I don't like that." And he goes, "Fine, like whatever, like we'll go find you something to eat," kind of thing. Like he kind of gives in to Egg each time the Egg kind of challenges his authority a little bit. So
Yeah, and we get to Dunk is going to get the goose eggs. He sees Tansel, who, there's this awkward exchange here, and she's just like, "Your shield will be ready this evening." Because he asks her, like, "Do you like goose eggs?" She's just like, "Your shield will be ready this evening."
as he's
He,
trying to like mimic a goose like giving
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
laying an egg, and he's like out the butt, like
Yeah, she
she's just
sees
kind of
all of
looking at him
this
like, "What
because
are
the
you
guy is
doing?"
originally gonna like cut the dang
And he's like,
goose
"No, no,
neck.
no."
He's like, "No, no, no, I just need the eggs." But then we kind of get them eating the breakfast, and then it's kind of going to them watching the tourney, and we get this nice like montage of the highlights. And this is where I think it's really working for me, is getting the montage with like this like folksy music that is very different from what we were usually hearing in Game of Thrones, is making it feel very stylistically different than other Westeros shows, right? We've been talking about this for the first 2 episodes as
Yeah,
well, but how different this show feels. But part of it is that music and like the way that they're,
yeah,
cutting some of these montages together where you get to just see Egg like cheering for the events going on,
Yep.
and then like him and Dunk bonding over stuff that they are seeing go on in the tourney,
Yeah.
it's kind of to show like not a passage of time per se, but like why they are becoming so fond of each other is because of these little moments they're experiencing
Yeah.
throughout that little montage.
It's a perfect way. I think it was George that actually said this. He goes, think of it more like a sporting event that these people are at, where they're kind of camping out and seeing different days, but like this is over time like a sporting event that you came to for entertainment. It's a lot of fun. Yes, there's a lot of politics in it, but I think as the average person watching on, especially the people of Ashford Meadow, it feels much more like a gathering and a social gathering rather than like an all-out war, which is what we always get with Game of Thrones. There was never any real like there are social aspects, but every time something social happened, Joffrey was like, going crazy or
Or
whatever it
somebody's
might be.
dying at
Right.
these
Somebody's killing
events.
each other. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect way to put it. And like you said, I heard the perfect explanation of the music. It's very folksy and Renaissance like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it feels like when it's playing.
Game of Thrones is very epic music of what
Yeah.
we expect for like this is like Shire music, while like Game of
Yes.
Thrones is like they're going to throw the ring in Gondor in Mordor, or they're battling in Gondor.
Dragons are flying.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like stuff is
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
But then they're sitting on the hill and they're just having this nice little exchange where, Egg says, I think I could be quite happy in a place like this. And Dunk says, you're in a place like this. But, he says, for longer time. But I think that kind of shows their perspectives, right? Right. Like Dunk, as being a squire to Sir Arlen, has been kind of probably thinking more short term, right? We're here. My goal is to get to this place. We're going to go then work for these knights. We're going to go work for this lord type of thing. While Eggs, we now know who he is, and we can say that because people have, are hopefully have watched the episode at this point. But he is Aegon. He is a heir to the throne. He probably thinks more long term. He's probably had stuff drilled into his head about like in the future you're going to do this, type of stuff. And when you have, he's sitting there thinking, "Oh my god, I could be so happy in a place like this long term, just like enjoying this, being away from that type of stuff." But we get Dunk saying, "You're in a place like this." It's like in Dunk's mind, he's in that moment while Egg is not. And it's kind of like showing Egg to kind of be present in this moment a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I think too, I think it's a perfect explanation of, like what you've said, of when you are of, like, so for instance, Dunk, right, is somebody that's looking upon these royals. Like you can tell he still has like this belief, just like most people would that have lived in Flea Bottom, where like they want to become something. He
He's
wants to
starstruck.
become right.
He's
So
kind
he's
of like,
starstruck and he's like, I want to get out of places like this. I want the nobility. And he sees that on the outside of things, where the Targaryens are the different side, where they're like,
mhm.
I could see somebody from and I think Jon Snow's a little bit like this. I think Arya Stark is a lot like this, where they've lived in royal like throughout the royalty, like in royal cities, where they're kind of like, I don't really want to be part of this anymore. Tyrion kind of feels like that some too, where he's like, I don't like this life for me. I want a
Mhm.
different life. So I think that's the way that Dunk is opposite, where he feels like he wants to be nobility. He wants to be somebody like he wants to be somebody in this world. And so he's like, oh, I'd love to rise above this. So it's a very interesting dynamic that Dunk's created, because it's just like he is where he comes from, but where he also wants to end up is in higher ranks.
What we also have is Egg makes it very clear in this that he does not like his family or
Yes.
certain members of his family,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So, for him, he really just wants to get away from it all.
Yeah.
We then have the master of lists, the guy named Plumber. is going to. This is a new scene from that's not in the book, and I have seen some controversy about this, and I'm gonna give why this happens, but um, he offers Duncan to pretty much rig the
Yeah.
joust against Sir Andrew, which is the youngest of Lord Ashford. The reason I've seen people ask, why do they need to tell Dunk at all?
Yep.
The reason why is because Dunk is the one that has to choose who he is facing.
Yep.
So you can't just be like, well, I've seen people say, well, like this type of stuff happens in like Daredevil, it happens in Bridgerton, it happens in all these shows where somebody is paid to take a fall, but Dunk is not the one being the fall guy. So people are saying, why would they have to approach him? Just have him win, and Sir Andrew takes the fall. But the way that this tournament is set up, and we see it in action when Prince Aerion goes and picks his opponent, is that in order for this to work, Dunk has to be in on it because he would have to go to Sir Andrew, pick him. Everybody would then bet on Sir Andrew, and then whoever bets on Dunk, which would be Lord Ashford and other people, would win a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Because apparently they overspent for this. This is all in the honor of his like daughter's birthday, right? And they've overspent. So he has to be in on it because he has to pick. Because otherwise, Dunk could just pick anybody else, lose that next fight, and then they don't have anybody for Sir Andrew to take the dive on. Also, one reason why it has to be Dunk, most likely, is because Dunk is the most unknown wild card variable in this tournament. So if like Sir Andrew's going up against like Humphrey Harding, who was one of the favorites, like that's not going to move the needle enough on the money to get a bigger return. So they had to kind of approach, the guy that it would be the biggest upset for to win.
Yeah, and I think that they because I saw people where they're asking why, and because they're like, why, wait, why is he throwing it? What is Ashford like? They're a house, like they should have money. It's because they've gone into like serious debt. Because I think it was I don't know if it's like the christening or the coming of age for his daughter that they were
Yeah.
going into debt for to throw a celebration. So they were
Yeah,
they're
they just
clearly
overspent on
yeah,
it.
they're clearly they're clearly basically they're in credit card debt. They're like,
Yeah.
how do I
They're
get
like
out of this?
millions of Americans.
Right. They're everybody in the world. But yeah, they're like, how do I get out of this? So by the means of, hey, let's have Dunk. And you're right. Could you imagine if they would have approached another house and that other house was like, oh, I'm gonna tell everybody else that you're doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
They would have destroyed Ashford.
Yeah, they think that with it being Dunk, that they
Yeah.
probably have a little bit more sway, and they probably think because he is so unknown, it would have a better money line. They probably think he's more willing because he wants to make a name for himself. Imagine
Yeah.
the name he becomes taking down Sir Andrew,
Hmm.
the child of the people hosting this tournament. And he does think about it later when he's talking about to Raymond Fossaway. He kind of asks, like, he kind of floats the idea of challenging Andrew, saying that they're equals, and Raymond Fossaway is like, oh, you fancy like challenging the local guy. And so it seems like maybe he was thinking about it, but I don't know if he's ever going to get the chance to do that. We'll talk about what happens at the end of the episode, but the tourney continues and we get Prince Aerion, Bright Flame. He kind of makes it look like he's going to challenge his cousin here, and then goes and says, like, I'm not going to embarrass you today, and challenges Sir Humphrey Harding, who is, I think they'd said that when Raymond was talking to him, that they thought he was going to be one of the favorites of the tournament. But Aerion plays dirty here. He is dishonorable, and he strikes the horse instead on purpose, which upsets the crowd. It also upsets his uncle Baylor, who's like looking at this like, God damn it, this kid, right? But then someone even throws a rock at him.
Yeah.
And Egg is immediately like, I want to leave. Like it's seeing this horse slowly die is painful. It was painful for me to watch this. I could not see that poor stick sticking out of that horse's neck
Yes,
for long.
I will say, humans, it doesn't usually bother me at all on shows.
Animals, it does, yeah.
Animals, 100%. Like, I will look away and just, like, the pain and, like, it looks so real. Like, it looks so the way, like, it was
It's like
CGI or whatever they
reacting
did, I was
and
like,
yeah.
"Ew." I was like, "That's disgusting." But yeah, like, you can and here's the thing too is, like, I think as, like, it's an obvious thing to state, but it so much of what the Targaryens had done up until this point, I mean, people fear them. They're monsters. They're aliens. As we get further in the episode, we'll find out. Like, there's a lot of things that are said about them that
Yeah.
are still being said in these kind of settings that you feel like we're kind of removed from that. But here's this Targaryen house that, like, they are the dragons, and he thinks he's a dragon, and so he thinks that he rules throughout all. But like the fact that Baylor has worked so hard to get the reputation of the Targaryens to where it needs to be, where Baylor is everybody always says the best Targaryen because he does. He's got values, he's got morals, he tends to not overstep those. And he's a very honest person. And I think when you can tell that the look of disappointment is there. Where Makar is not even there to experience what his son had just done because he's out looking for his sons that he lost. So obviously, this guy's got no control over his sons.
Mhm.
And here's Baelor, who is heir to the throne and somebody that will take over, whereas Makar and his kids are, way down the line, like fourth son of the fourth son of the king. So he's never really going to become the king unless crazy things happen. So you can just tell like there's this rivalry between Aerion and Baelor that you can see with just that look.
Yeah. They go to Lionel's tent. This is another new scene. We get the song about, Alice. There was this just nice exchange from, Egg saying, like, do you think she's real? Type thing. And then I think Dunk says something about maybe it not being like her real name. And Egg's like, if she is real and that she was so good at pleasuring, but still no one took the time to make sure they got her name right. Like, what does that say? And I think it's a good question. I think it's a very nice philosophical question about what people choose to remember and idolize and how a lot of times in this, especially back, I don't want to say back then because it's a fantasy world, but like
But yeah, but
women weren't getting a lot of
Yeah.
the credit or shine on on them.
Yeah, it shows a very there's an empathetic side to
Yes.
Egg that you don't see in this world, and Dunk's the same way. I think that's what makes them so compatible is they both seem so apathetic and like I don't really, I feel for people, like I really do. They're empaths and they understand that bad things are happening, but not all people are like that in Westeros, and I think that's cool that we're getting that kind of side of the story.
All right, so we get to the very heavy part. This is another new
Mhm.
scene. They run into a fortune teller who Dunk thinks this is a neat parlor trick. He's laughing his ass off at you shall be richer than a Lannister. He's like, oh, that's great.
Good for me.
And he's like, do the kid next.
Get the fortune cookies out. Let's go.
And she says, you shall be king and die in a hot fire, and the worms will feed upon your ashes, and everyone who knows you will rejoice in your dying.
Yikes.
This haunts Egg. He says, why would she say that?
And, goes,
and Dunk's just
know.
laughing. He's like,
Yeah.
whatever, who cares? But let's talk about it because I alluded to it. That these two characters do have an ending, Dunk and Egg. It's not like written yet. I think it's supposed to be in the next Targaryen book, Blood and Fire, that I think he's waiting to release until he's done the series. So this will never happen, I guess. But,
Yeah. Or this could happen in the 15th season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms because Ira
that's
Parker
what, like, I think Ira Parker said he wants to go out all the way to their end.
Yeah, he wants to do 15 or something seasons, and
That's never going to happen.
He said he has bought into the fact that he would go along with however old Dexter gets, And
not
if
recast.
Claffey wants to also continue, that he would be willing to kind of do that, which there have been shows that have done that, but it's so difficult to do because
Yeah,
who
15
knows? This kid's
seasons.
going to be
It
sought
is
after.
yearly, so it'd be 15
Yeah.
years. That's a while. But I mean, look, you're looking at 2041. Oh my God. Let's not think
sign
about
me
that.
up.
Let's not think about that. Let's not think about that right now. But this is how Egg and Dunk die. They die in a fire of Summerall. And the story, I guess, is that Egg is trying to hatch dragon eggs and ends up burning down. He gets really obsessed with dragon eggs later in his life and ends up burning down Summerall. There, of course, people think that there is more to this story, and maybe that's the goal, is to get to this point at some point to tell this story. But I mean, at that point in his life, he was so much older. I don't know how they would be able to really do that. But yeah, so I mean, now, of course, people point out that not everyone who knows him does rejoice in his death. He was actually a very popular king with like the small folk, because he made a lot of reforms for the common folk, which pissed off a lot of the lords, though. So that line is probably referencing the lords of Westeros on who would be rejoicing, because he wasn't very popular in that regard. And of course, Dunk becomes, his Kingsguard, so he is there when it happens. But all of that is just alluded to and stuff. There's no story actually written with all of that in there. They reference it in, I think, the core Game of Thrones stories and stuff like that. But Aegon is Aegon the Five, also known as Aegon the Unlikely. He will have a son named Duncan the Small, because he's not going to be as tall as Duncan the Tall. He has Jaehaerys the second, and then he also has a kid that he will have marry off to the Baratheons, and that makes Robert Baratheon Aegon's part of Aegon's lineage as well. So I think that's very interesting that Robert Baratheon, of course, is the one that will uprise and take out Aerys and Rhaegar and all of them, and they're actually part of the same lineage. So, but I think in the show they cut out the Jaehaerys line and made it where like Aerys is Aegon's kid. Now I don't know if that was in the core Game of Thrones show. I don't know what they're gonna do in all these other shows, but that was the Mad King. So Aegon is the grandfather of the Mad King. So he is part of the reason, I guess you'd say, for the fall of his house by having these having these kids.
Well, you got Daenerys to carry it later on, but
yeah, that doesn't work out.
Why is that, Jordan? Tell me about the last episode.
Well, you see, I'm somebody that thinks that the clues were there, though, for her being,
I believe,
the Mad Queen. So
yes.
Okay, so after the fortune teller, they run into Raymond Fossaway, who meets up with Dunk, and Egg's like, "I'm going to the puppet show. I'll bring your shield back afterwards." And Dunk wants to go to this puppet show, but he ends up drinking the cider with Raymond. Like I said, this is where he floats the idea of challenging Andrew. And Dunk says, he kind of lets it slip that he thinks it's funny that Egg thinks that Aerion meant to kill the horse. And Raymond unloads. He calls them incestuous aliens. They burn down our lands. The only honorable thing a Targaryen can do is finish on his wife's tits. And then he apologizes for getting carried away and says he got that line from Steph.
Yeah, because he has no idea what sex is. Like, this is clearly a child that has never had, and that's all he's hearing it from his awful brother.
Yes, yeah. But during all of this, the puppet show is going on, and Aerion is in the crowd. Tanzel is telling a story about like a slaying of a dragon, Aerion takes this as offense because this obviously the family sigil. Dragons were their thing. And he starts hurting Tanzel, who makes Egg run in there. But while this is going on, we get, Fossaway saying Prince Maekar left to look for his kids. Daron and his youngest, they never reached Ashford. Daron is probably just drunk again. Aerion is vain and cruel. His third son was useless and sent to train as a maester. This is Maester Aemon from The Wall in Game of Thrones. He had that great line when he was dying that said, Egg, I dreamed I was old. Yeah. So he was
wonder
with his
how
brother.
I do wonder how many people, like, I wanted to know because I've been spoiled on this, obviously.
Oh, how many people were shocked by this?
Yes. I have been spoiled. I was spoiled because I think it was like a video that said the hair was a clear indication as to why he's a Targaryen. And I was like, oh, thanks, TikTok. I
was spoiled years ago. I thought this was general knowledge when people said Duncan Egg
definitely
is
not.
Story of Duncan and Aegon. I didn't know they were ever going to play this as a mystery. And a lot of like I would say like the like variety deadline and stuff, I don't think they really, like, when they announced the show, I believe they kind of spoiled that kind of stuff too. So I'm very thankful that this is revealed in this episode so we can finally talk about it and stop kind of skirting around it. But I did see some people online that were genuinely blown away. They had no clue. So I think it did work for the people that, had no clue. But yeah, so I don't really know. But, as he's talking about the youngest child, before he can say anything about them, Egg interrupts, and that's him, of course, the youngest, to get Dunk to help. And Dunk goes and fights Aerion, loosens his tooth. So he says, I will knock out all of yours. Doesn't feel like quite eye for an eye.
No. You know who it felt like, though? I was like, this is totally Joffrey. Like, this felt like Joffrey all over again. I was like, oh, okay, so you're kind of in that same rule by the eye for eye kind of stuff. It's very weird.
But Egg has to reveal himself here, or else...
It's a great line.
Or else Dunk would get killed. Now Dunk is like, boy, shut your mouth because they will do this to you. And he says, no, they won't.
No, but he calls the Kingsguard by name.
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh.
Reveals himself as Aegon. His brother says, what happened to your hair? And he says, I cast it off because I didn't want to look like you.
Savage little kid. Man.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? I also really love the editing of this. This felt very different as well, where this music is very, like I said before, the music is great, but this music is really great here. And it's like cutting to the beat almost of like seeing each person's, and zooming out a little bit. It feels very modern.
You don't want to know what it feels like. You're watching a show just like it. Bridgerton does that same thing where it's kind of like pan, and you're like, what the heck? Because it's like revealing dramatic things and cutting back, almost like it's revealing the curtain back.
It felt very Knives Out.
Yes, that too.
It felt very Knives Out. Feels very... what was another show I was thinking of? But it just, it really stuck with me. And just getting to see everybody's reaction as it's going on is, I think, really cool. But yeah, so thankfully... we don't have to worry about spoilers in that regard anymore.
Yeah. As I dropped that last episode and people are never...
Yeah, hopefully everybody just blew past that because we did. We just moved on.
I just go, Aegon. I'm like, nope, that was wrong.
Egg on my face. I didn't realize. Just somehow make it work.
Yeah. This is every podcast that I've listened to on this show, though. They're all like, oh, thank God. Like,
yes,
there's a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they've read the novella. So they know... And Jordan, I'll come clean here. I was like, I have stopped again because I don't want to know. Like, I feel like
you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've not continued on in the novella. I got to the part where it's kind of like, okay, this feels like I'm getting into pieces where I don't quite know what's going on, so I'm going to stop. But yeah, no, I feel like it was a really cool reveal that I think later on down the road, if people are watching this would be cool too, because I think if you watch this 3 or 4 years later, you're not gonna have all this in your face, and as long
Mhm.
as you don't Google things, you might be able to kinda skirt around things if they're not continuing to the 15th year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, maybe. I mean, they might
Right.
season 4 or 5 at that point. So one thing I think the show is doing very well is showing the position the Targaryens are in. So you talked about it a little earlier, and we were kind of hinting at it, but we get to see that the Fossaways don't really like the Targaryens, right? And I would say probably that sentiment is probably shared by a lot of the lords of the people that were conquered. Um, the crowd is upset when Aerion acts like a fool and does his trick with the horse. They would not be attempting that if dragons were still alive. That's another thing. They don't have any dragons. There's no threat at this point, right? Like, if you think back to like House of the Dragon times, if somebody did this, they would be burnt to a crisp. This is at a point where the Targaryens no longer have dragons. It doesn't seem like they are very well respected or loved because of that fact. And it seems like there are some real problems with the succession line that people are not feeling. The way that they had criticisms for each one of these kids of Makars makes me think that, they're also not too far removed from a war. We're talking about the Blackfire rebellions, right? That's been creeping up quite a bit. And we're also not too far along before they will be usurped by Robert Baratheon. We're about 80 years before that, and we're about 80 years before after House of the Dragon. So we're at this precious time now where the Targaryens are kind of the events that will cause the downfall of that house is coming, right? They're in motion at this point. Characters like Aemon, who die at the age of 102, are alive in this time period. Like we're reaching that type of page where some of these characters are around, and it's very interesting to see the position that they are in, because we've seen them at like their strengths during House of the Dragon. While they are having petty internal fights, people are scared of the dragons. And then we've seen kind of like them be irrelevant in Game of Thrones until Dany comes over to Westeros with her dragons, and people are kind of scared again and bending the knee. So I think it's just very good how the show is kind of positioning this, because I feel like Targaryens are probably the most would you say that and Starks are the most well-known houses for like outside viewers as well for this type of show?
Yeah, I think, Baratheons would be kind of overlooked. Um, the Lannisters have a really weird like arc with a lot of them, so I think it kinda they would have been popular had it just been Tyrion, but I think because of Jaime and because of
Yeah,
Cersei
yeah.
and them are it's just kinda like I think it so yes, I would say Stark because all every time I see people like saying that they're a house, it's always the Stark flag.
It's
It
like the
always seems that.
Gryffindor of
It is.
Hogwarts, where everybody's
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
And Targaryen
I'm a
seems
Stark."
very Slytherin,
And
like kind of yes.
Targaryen, like, I remember so many people calling their kid Khaleesi. It made the
Yeah.
it made the most oh, man, those people were
Khaleesi.
pissed a
Yeah.
couple years ago when the finale ended.
Yeah. Yeah, they were like,
"Sorry, little Khaleesi,
maybe
we're gonna have to go change your name."
yeah. Yeah, but no, I think too, like, it just what we know about it's weird because if you're not so into House of Dragon, like, House of the Dragon is, I think, different in the way that it portrays the Targaryens, because if you watch Game of Thrones, Jordan, like, she's really the only one left. Like Daenerys is like
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
just kind of
she's
there with her dragon eggs, and it's like this poor outcast. Her house has just completely been wiped. Like who is this poor girl? And you rooted for her throughout the Game of Thrones. Like I at least I did. Like I rooted for her
until you
because I
get
was
to a
like
certain
she's always
point, you're like,
until you get to a certain point she becomes very Targaryen. But like
there's a few things even early on where you're like, "Not how I would
yeah,
do that, Danny. Not how I would do
right,
that." But,
right. But
you
trying to
are rooting for her
survive. Yeah.
because you're thinking, "The Lannisters are so
Yes.
awful. I am
Yeah.
rooting for anybody to take them out," right?
Joffrey, yeah, I was gonna say after Joffrey's introduced, you root for everyone. You're like, I could see the
Yeah.
problem with Cersei, but for some reason, I'll root for her
This
over
guy's
him.
got to go.
Yeah, he's got to die.
And then
Which is
after he
why
dies, you're like, this Ramsey guy has got to go.
I became that way with Littlefinger too. I was like, you kill him.
There's always one. It's like as
Yeah.
soon as then like
Yeah.
somebody else dies, you're like that Littlefinger guy has to go. Like
Yeah.
you just start like looking
Yeah.
at each person like like
Yeah.
like it's all falling apart.
Yeah. But like all long-winded to say, the Targaryens in this moment right now, Jordan, they're in a very weird crossroads of like,
Mhm.
where do we go from here? The reason our house exists, Jordan, is now extinct. Like, and there's no signs of them coming back. So like,
Right.
and we're to a point too, Jordan, where I think it's we can note that like Aemon, like he believes that, or Aerion believes that he is a dragon. Like he truly believes that he himself is like dragon worthy, where he's it's weird.
He's
Like
got
you
like
got to read.
the Viserys,
Yeah, it's
you know, Danny's brother type thing
yeah.
going on.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point.
It's I think this is what's so fascinating about the Targaryens is, you know, everybody, even if you told like Egg never thought he would be king. That's why he's called the unlikely. There are
Yeah.
people in front of him that should become king, and it will kind of be this. I don't think we know it. I don't know it all, right? But I mean, like there somehow he does become king, so it kind of it's this domino effect that ends up, you know, like I said, causing the downfall of his house, but he's also trying to do good things for the people of Westeros. Like I said, he does a lot of like reforms for the common folk, which really upsets the lords, which then causes some of those problems for the Targaryens. And again, like I said, they don't have dragons, so he doesn't have. There's not a lot of sway here to be like. Maybe that's why he was so obsessed later in life with trying to get dragons to or maybe he had a vision as well of the future with the White Walkers, right? It's I think that's the most curious thing is, you know, he doesn't seem like somebody that is really rooted in the Targaryen lifestyle. So to know later on in life he does kind of get
Lean
interested
back
by
towards it.
this, and
Yeah.
it's to me when a character has that uh type of arc or through line for the plot, it makes me think that they got some new information. And in my mind, the thing that has been a constant theme throughout the Song of Ice and Fire series is obviously ice and fire, right? So we have fire of the dragons and we have ice being the White Walkers. And they even did this in House of Dragon where they inserted Jaehaerys having on his deathbed kind of like the vision of the uh you know of knowing what's going on beyond the wall, and that somebody will have to take out these threats, and it leads to then that was a show insertion, so it makes me think that putting this prophecy here, which is another show insertion, is trying to find another way to again connect this show to the flagship show of a Game of Thrones. Right? Like I feel like they because there's no need to do this right now. And like I'm sure people are seeing that prophecy and being like, God damn, like did they just spoil what happens to these characters? Because I was wondering, like, I wasn't gonna mention it until they brought it up on the prophecy.
Yeah. Yep. I
Because I'm
agree.
like,
Right.
who knows when that story is being told?
Mhm.
But if they're setting it up like this right now, it makes me think that there's going to be ultimate payoff in either one of these later seasons of where they again self-insert, or that the goal is this makes me think that, you know, when Ira Parker is saying he wants to do their whole life, it makes me
I think
think that he's serious
yeah.
if they're putting this tease in here this early in season 1.
Yes. No, I totally agree. And I think too, they have the luxury of kind of what Star Wars had the luxury of, sort of, in an extent. But like this is to a big extent. Like George's like world building.
He
And I
mapped out
think
so many lineages
right.
and the names
He
and
can
what they
break them.
did.
Yeah.
It is that is how this is working to the point where you can go any point in time,
Mhm.
because you can do that in a lot of franchises, but like the thing with this show and this series is that there is actually written works from the author about these time periods
Yeah.
because he has it all mapped out.
Yep. Ira Parker is said to have had the reason why we keep mentioning 15, they're like, where are they coming up with that number? Is Ira
Another
Parker
12
has an
stories.
outline of 12 different stories that he can build off of. But he's like, roughly, I could have about 15 years of this show. Like, that's how it's kind of built right now. So I'm assuming some of them it could be a two-parter kind of thing. But like, I really do. I feel like he does have that. If the actors are interested, of course, he would want to do that. 15 years is a lot of time, and we've seen people burn out. Like, I mean, you look at Kit Harington, he doesn't even want to step foot in this world again.
Yeah.
And he keeps going back and forth between like what he wants to say. And recently came out, he goes, I don't think there's more to Jon Snow's story. Like, I just assumed like it was over.
Look, if what was a Hollywood Reporter
Yes.
reported
Yep.
about the Jon Snow show,
Yep.
that sounds funny. The Jon Snow show,
Just no
if
show.
that was all accurate, thank God they didn't make it. Okay.
Yes.
It was going to be it would have been really bad. And,
Yeah.
and it would make Kit Harington not want to associate with the character even more. But it was like trying to like course correct, but like they weren't going to do it in a good way. Like if
No.
people want to look up I forget what it all said, but if people want to look up what that thing was, it's out there, and it makes me very happy that they did not go through with that. But you're right. We've talked about how many times have people talked about that Game of Thrones would have been legendary if even if it had the same ending, but like if you had more episodes in there or more seasons. And I think HBO would have probably loved to have 10 seasons of 10 episodes. But Benioff and Weiss had signed a deal with Disney to do Star Wars, and they
Mhm.
wanted to get to that faster, so they did 8 seasons, and they
Mhm.
cut, season 7 and 8 to be like 7 episodes and 6 episodes. You're missing almost a whole season there if you give each of those 10 episodes. You're missing like 7 episodes
Mhm.
of stuff for 8 seasons. And also, there was no way the actors probably would have continued going on these grueling schedules, because that was back when the show was yearly, as well, and they were constantly, in winter doing they would have to start
Yeah.
filming more later in the year because of the need for it to be winter. Um, it it makes it unrealistic to have it last that long. So while I think it's admirable, I do not think they're gonna get to 50. I think they are lucky if they get to 6.
Yeah.
Because the show will get more expensive too. If this thing is a big hit, these actors are going to ask for raises. It's going to increase the cost of the show. Also, right now, there's only 3 novellas. While yes, he does have outlines, we've seen how it works sometimes when these
Yeah.
showrunners go off script. So
Yeah.
I am kind of curious, and we talked about it last week or maybe the premiere of how long does this go on for? What are they aiming for? That's the main question, because like each one of these novellas are standalone to the point where you can kind of have like a nice it could end at season 3 and take a break. It could come back like hopefully George gets one of these out there again, right? But we don't know.
Would you be okay with, I know this is down the road, but as we get further and further down the road and they would have to up, I guess you could wait a little bit, but like who knows what the kid's gonna do? But like you still have where you could have Claffy. You can age him up, whereas like it would be really hard to age a child like that much. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
he'll just
could
age
you
he'll just have a growth spurt at one
naturally,
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like we're in 5 years, Jordan, he's not gonna be noticeably where we could skip ahead to where he's 20. Like he can't have
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
15-year-old, you know what I mean? So would you be okay if they take it as far as they can really take it, say it's 5 or 6 seasons, would you then be okay with them finishing out their story in a movie?
That's what I was just gonna say. Like we actually maybe not a theatrical movie, and maybe
No,
not
no.
like a just make like a special. They used to
Mhm.
call them TV movies.
Yep.
Now they're streaming movies, I guess, but like a special 2-hour wrap up. You recast Egg as an adult. You either age up Dunk or you recast him as a full on adult. Like I know he's 29 actor, but you know what I'm saying, like to look
You
how old.
bring
'Cause
in Ewan McGregor is what you do.
yeah, yeah. You know, I think that would be fine, or even like because originally I was gonna say like maybe a flash forward in the end, but like you would be tacking
Mhm.
that on to something that doesn't really fit if these are standalone. Like so maybe you do like a 2-hour thing like that to wrap it up. I don't know. This is what I'm so curious about because like I said, that story in Summerall is not written. We have 12 outlines of novellas that he wants to get to, but each one is kind of like mostly standalone from my understanding. That it's like, how do you wrap up a show like this? I know in their opinion, HBO is like, yeah, yearly Game of Thrones, let's go. They don't care right
Yeah,
now.
licking their
But at some
chops.
point, interest will wane because shows never get like more and more popular as they go on. When you get to that point, like you're getting to season 15, that's not going to be
Oh, I mean,
picking
look
up
what
more
happened to
views.
yeah, ER and Grey's Anatomy and anybody that's tried to go over that. Now it's just, like, to the point where, like, my wife's a diehard Grey's, and she's like, "Just end it."
It's like
Like,
20
"Just
some seasons,
stop."
right?
Yeah, it's like
And
22.
if you look at the Nielsen ratings for
Yeah.
those, each season
They're
continues to go down typically, but
mhm.
there's the hardcore fans that stick around and will watch it. But like, it's never hitting the highs of like
No.
the episode where they had like the helicopter or plane crash and
Or
whatever.
or look at Stranger Things who did 5 seasons and, they're I mean, it's the world's most streamed I mean, it's
Right,
like,
right.
in their 5th season, their finale was the most streamed, so it was like that's a perfect ballpark where I think shows are trying to end now, and I
I mean,
think
yeah, they're
that's
ending House of Dragon at season
yeah,
4.
yeah,
So, and they're trying to get the Conquest either show or movie off the ground. The guy who wrote the Batman
mhm.
with Matt Reeves and Batman Part 2, Mattson, what is it? Mattson Thomason, or Tomlinson is writing the Aegon Conquest show or movie, depending on what way they go about that. But it's like, yeah, if that's just a movie, then that's not going to get them yearly Game of Thrones either. But they want to do more spinoffs. They're talking about the Arya spinoff. They're talking about
The animated series.
the animated, the Sea Serpent.
Mhm.
It's it's interesting because there's not a show like this on, I would say, anything on TV where, I mean, other than like procedural shows that can end whenever, I guess. But I mean, like, this isn't like technically procedural, but if each season is its own story, you have a chance of like season 3 ending and being the last novella, and let's say the show is not as popular in season 3. Who knows? It could be more popular, but and maybe they say, you know what, the cost isn't there anymore. That's it. And it's not going to have like a big fanfare finale because each one of these stories are different. That's why you would have to almost do like the TV special or the TV
Mhm.
movie to wrap it up.
It'd be end of life for them is the climactic point of
Yeah,
this, yeah, 'cause it's so episodic, like, who knows what, 4 or 5 would be, right? Like, the
right, right.
novellas, I mean, it's them
Ira
becoming,
Parker
like,
knows.
of the knighthood, right. But, like, at a certain point, I feel like, "Alright, what's enough of the knights?" Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where do we go from here? Because otherwise it's just jousting, like, we're just jousting, is that what it's all gonna be about? Like, what is this? So I think it's hard
Well, I
to
think
you get
like the other ones are not as much focused on the
No, they're
tourney, but
not,
like they
but
do like I would almost say you can almost do like it's kind of like Phantom Menace when
yeah.
the Chancellor sends Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon on a diplomatic mission. You can have like, because he's a hedge knight, he's jumping around from lord to lord. you can kind of have like different stories at each one of like, oh, this time I'm helping them with like these their kid's missing and I'm finding the kid, or they're yeah, I don't know what the
Taking
other
down
ones
different
of,
houses.
yeah, yeah, they stole their cows. I'm going to get
Yeah.
their cows back or whatever, or I'm
Yeah.
fighting
Or
this guy for them.
yeah. Dunk and Egg start a podcast. Like that'd be
Yeah,
great.
there you go. Really break the immersion there with having them with microphones.
Fourth wallet. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
have them break out a character to explain The
Yeah.
Office. You could do like an Office version
Oh my god,
season.
no. But I mean, that's the thing, right? We have no clue where this will go, but in the meantime, I'm enjoying the ride. I'm liking the first 3 episodes. I know how this story ends, and you're almost there if you're listening along to where each one ends. But the fun thing is, we only have 2 days from when we're recording this till the next episode drops. It drops Friday night because of the Super Bowl. That was a question I had the other night, and we're getting it early on HBO Max. I think it's still going to air on HBO at regular time on the 8th, but you can go watch it on HBO Max on Friday. Now, I don't know if that means at regular 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. Friday, or if it's
I think it said 9 Eastern
did it say 9?
time. I think
Okay.
so. From what I remember.
There you go. So and that episode is called 7. The trailer came out where, he's being on trial for for taking on and fighting a royal, and he has to find 7 people to join his thing. That's what the trailer showed. That's why when I saw that name 7 for the title, I was like, oh, that's a pretty big episode then. But yeah, anything else before we wrap it on up?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking forward to 4. The fallout of it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering is like where they cut off 4 and go into 5. Because like as we've known from Game of Thrones, the big event usually happened in the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Is that the case is this trial by combat taking place in episode 5, or is it stretching it to 6, or is 6 all wrap up of the rest of the story? That's kind of what I'll be curious to see how it goes when we get further and further into this. All right. Well, Logan, where can people follow all your podcasts?
I was going to say all of the stuff you can
notes,
find over on socials. Yeah, we'll put them in the show notes, but at the Screen Society podcast, if you type that in, you'll get us. There's different little symbols and stuff I had to throw in because the usernames were too long. But if you search us up there or on YouTube or Spotify, we're the Screen Society podcast.
Yeah, and I'm at Soups and Sabers on all of our social medias for our coverage of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We have Wonder Man coverage coming. I think I'm recording that on Friday. So on Friday, I will be probably posting that Friday. That after you watch A Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 4, you can be like, hey, I want to actually listen to Wonder Man stuff and not A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You can go over to Soups and Sabers and listen to our Wonder Man coverage. That show was really great. I recommend it to anybody out there. Even if you're burnt out on the MCU stuff, it's very, very different from anything else they've done. At times you're watching it and you forget you're watching the MCU. In a good way and in a bad way, I guess. I mean, I don't mean that in a derogatory to the MCU. I mean that as praise to Wonder Man, but some people might read it as however they want. And then, yeah, that's kind of all the big stuff I have going on right now is this coverage and Wonder Man coverage. And March, we'll have Daredevil Born Again Season 2. In April, we have Darth Maul Shadow Lord, or Maul Shadow Lord. So tons of stuff coming through Soups and Sabers. So make sure you check that out. And make sure you check Logan out for all of the Screen Society for all the fun pit and shrinking coverage.
Yeah.
You know who could use some shrinking?
Yeah, Aerion.
Sir Arlen.
Oh, well, him too. Yeah, he could.
It's a little too big.
The appendages, yeah. You might want to get that checked. I think that was the horse's dick.
Yeah, it was the size of one. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time.